Is there a truly reality out there that humans could really know? It's an age-old battle between realists and absolutists. God is not great, how religion ruins everything. And yet it's utterly and totally ridiculous. We need to live for something beyond ourselves. For more than 23 centuries, even since the days of Plato, people have been arguing over the nature of knowledge and truth. Is there a truly reality out there that humans can really know? Or is all our knowledge purely subjective, contingent, and changing and cultural? It's an age-old battle between realists and absolutists. It's between them versus the skeptics, the relativists, and the social construction of knowledge folks. And it's also being played out, interestingly enough, in the realm of science as well, modern science as well. There are many scientists, the realists, who argue that there is an absolute reality out there that science is the most rational, best way to get it. And yet there are those who are challenging them on that. And that's really what I want to look at today for the next few minutes, because it's got some very interesting implications in our just generally trying to understand life and what does the world mean and what does life mean and how do we know the things that we know. And that's what I want to take a look at as we pursue this further. So that's the big question we're looking at. Those who believe that there's an absolute truth, an absolute reality out there we could know. And it's them versus the social construction, the postmodern thinkers, the followers of Michel Foucault, Jacques Derrida, and Paul Feyerabend. And they say that all knowledge, and even science, is relative, it's contingent, it's uncertain. And they claim that science is really culturally conditioned, and that one kind of science is not necessarily better than another kind. And to assert that your science is better than someone else's, some of them say it's racist, or it's chauvinistic, or it's sexist. One woman even claimed that Newton's Principia, she said it was a rape manual. Another said that E = mc squared is a sexist equation because it favors the speed of light over other speeds. Anyway, that's the kind of stuff that we're dealing with here. Well, in the midst of this battle, there was a physicist of some renown. His name was Alan Sokal, and he was from New York University. And he submitted a paper to a journal called Social Text, which is kind of the flagship journal of the social constructionist folks, the postmoderns, those who see science as they do all reality as relative, contingent, and so forth. And he titled the article, Transgressing the Boundaries Toward a Transformative Hermeneutic of Quantum Gravity. Get that, a hermeneutic of quantum gravity. Now in it, let me read you one quote from what Mr. Sokal wrote in his paper. As Althusser rightly commented, Lacan finally gives Freud thinking the scientific concept that it requires. More recently, Lacan's topology du sujet has been applied fruitfully to cinema criticism and the psychoanalysis of age. In mathematical terms, Lacan is here pointing out the first homology group of the sphere is trivial, while those other surfaces are profound. And this homology is linked with the connectiveness or disconnectedness of the surface after one or two more cuts. Now, that sounds pretty deep, doesn't it? And pretty heavy. Well, it is, but it was also patent nonsense. Sokal made the whole thing up. What he did was he spent a great deal of time studying the language and jargon of the social constructionist people. And he just put this hodgepodge together of pure nonsense. Almost all the paper was totally make-believe. I mean, talk about nonsense. What does he say in the paper? But hey, you guys are right. Quantum gravity is really purely a social construction as opposed to anything that's really out there. Now, he took a gamble when he did this, and he bet that the editors of this paper, He bet that the editors would not have his paper vetted in a peer review. He thought that these editors, some of the leading thinkers of the social constructionist movement of knowledge, would be so happy to have an eminent physicist on their side, from the realist side. They would be so happy to have him write a paper for their publication, which pretty much takes their position. He thought they're not even going to bother to get it checked out for the science. Because if they had done it, if they had, any scientist at all who knew anything about this would have told them that this is silliness. It's nonsensical blather. Well, the bottom line was Sokal was right. The premier intellectual journal of the social constructionists, of the relativists, published something a guy made up, pure silliness. Then, to make matters worse, Sokal even arranged to have an expose of his hoax published in another paper called Lingua Franca, in which he basically said that this was an experiment to see if these people would even bother to get his paper peer reviewed, which they didn't. Now, as you can imagine, this caused quite a furor. This caused quite a furor, at least among the postmoderns and the social constructionist theorists of knowledge and science. Now, the realists, of course, they loved it. They declared that we knew these folks were phonies all along, and they don't know what they were talking about, and on and on and on. Now, I like what Sokal did. I like what he did because it does throw some water on this whole notion of the relativity of knowledge. Now, come on, folks. Sure, the world comes to us filtered through our senses, and the world doesn't come to us objectively. There's always contingencies in our knowledge. There's always some questions about what we know. That's fine. No one's going to deny that. We all remember the image of the five blindfolded men who were placed before an elephant. They put the blindfolds on, and each one is asked to feel what's in front of them. One says a tree, one says a hose, someone says something else. The point is to show that there are different perspectives on things. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, as long as you don't forget one crucial point. And that point is that the elephant is still there. There is something there. There is a reality there. Something exists out there, something that was real, regardless of how difficult it was for the folks to know just what it was. And I think this is a crucial point that we sometimes lose sight of. That reality comes to us filtered. The five men had different views of the elephant. The different views didn't mean that the elephant was not there. Absolute truth, absolute reality exists. It's there regardless of how little we can grasp or know it. It's almost like looking through a peephole in a mountain. You look through a peephole and there's a mountain. Well, you're only seeing a small part of the mountain through the peephole, and what you're seeing is distorted, but it doesn't mean there's no mountain there. Come on, folks. Who's got a better grasp of reality? Folks who believe in aerodynamics, who you're going to want to get on a jet plane built by the latest in aerodynamics, or you want to get, on a jet plane built by a voodoo faith healer? Who's closer to reality? Someone who denies the Holocaust, who says no Holocaust ever happened, or someone who believes in it? Who's closer to the truth? Someone who thinks the moon is made of green cheese, or someone who thinks it's made of rocks? Sure, everything we know is contingent, but there are still a reality out there. Who's closer to truth? Someone who thinks Charles de Gaulle was the first president of the United States, or that George Washington was? See, who is closer to truth? Someone who thinks the sun orbits the earth, or the earth circles the sun. You see, here's the point that we don't want to lose. Truth is out there because there is a reality out there. And by what we believe, we can come closer to that truth than others can. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to say, well, my belief that Charles de Gaulle was the first president of the United States and your belief that George Washington was, my belief is just as good as yours. No, that doesn't work. No, folks, there is a reality out there. There is. It comes filtered, sure. No one's going to deny that it comes filtered. but there is still something out there. And and the quest for truth, and the quest for truth, the quest for a better understanding of that reality, how it got here, why it's here, what it means, what our places are as humans in the whole scope of things. In its own way, it sort of seems to me to be kind of a sacred quest to know that. At least that's what I think it would be, somewhat of a sacred quest to know.